I'm Theron Ramacharaka. I'm in a petrol rod. I'm also going to talk about the notion of spiritual ascension, or the great shift. Let me read you something by somebody named Weinhold, Weinhold, from Reinhold's website. Weinhold's website. Okay. Just a paragraph here to introduce this video. 1987, excuse me. 1987 was a momentous year that marked the beginning of humanity's ascension, rebirth, and a shift into the fourth dimension. 1987's harmonic convergence also marked the beginning of our sun's direct alignment with the center of our Milky Way galaxy. This very rare cosmic event, excuse me, good grief. This very rare cosmic event has been exposing our whole solar system to intense rounds of torsion wave energy. Many believe this newly discovered energy source emanating from galactic center is activating our DNA and setting in motion the great shift long prophesied by many indigenous traditions, including the Mayan, Incan, Hopi, and Vedic. Mayan timekeepers' records indicate that 2012 marks the close of several large cycles of time. A 26,000-year Mayan calendar cycle, a 78,000-year Earth cycle. Good grief. Excuse me. $26 million-year Earth cycle and the 225 million galactic year. The simultaneous close of these cycles in 2012 is like the odometer turning over for the entire history of our galaxy, and perhaps the whole cosmos. It is a moment when humanity, planet Earth, and the Milky Way galaxy, and perhaps all of creation, is expected to take a simultaneous leap in evolution. All right. That's all I'm going to read to you. So now you know what I'm addressing. And there's been a lot of talk about all of this for, I don't know, I've been aware of it for 20 or 30 years, this talk. But you know what? I don't see it. I'm not just saying I'm not just saying the obvious, that I don't see the great spheres, the celestial spheres doing these actions. I'm saying I don't see the result here in the human condition. I'm not seeing it. I'm not feeling it happening. I'm not perceiving it. I'm perceiving the opposite happen with the human condition. And I am understanding and intuiting and being increasingly cognitively and intellectually aware and witnessing the results of an opposite direction going on. Intentionally perpetrated by some rather powerful and cunning powers, forces. That endeavor to work things backwards. Now, I'm not saying what I read to you is all bullshit. I'm not saying that. I'm not in a position to know whether what I read to you is all factual material, but yeah, I do understand that these various traditions have indicated these things. Now, I'm not in a position to know whether these things are actually manifesting either. I don't know. But the results, the state of affairs that is obvious to me, and not just to me, is otherwise. Now, just like many people take it to be the case that, well, insofar as they've heard this sort of thing, they've looked into it and they found a lot of information, maybe here on YouTube. Some great shift, ascension, fourth dimension, on and on. Tradition, ancient wisdom. But they've encountered this information. And it sounds positive. And it's a good idea to remain positive about affairs, right? And without any further evidence, really, I don't call this evidence of anything. It's evidence that people have been talking about this for a long time. Yeah. But beyond that, they kind of believe this blindly. If you open your eyes, there are also a lot of people who look around and say, something went wrong. If there's evidence for that, it's empirical. And that empirical evidence, which is intersubjectively confirmable, in other words, others can see it too. Look at the same evidence, draw the same conclusion. This indicates something much deeper. Oh my goodness. Some years ago, I was doing some work and there were sparks flying around. And I inhaled one into my throat. And it stuck in the back, down in here, and it burned in. Now there's a little hole in there. And insofar as it was going down, it burned in this way. So, sometimes particles of food, especially hard foods, get stuck down in there. They're really hard to get out. That's what's going on. Excuse me. I just wanted to make this video. Now, so, what's being pointed out here about this great shift might be the natural course of things. If we look at Indian thought, there are many different levels or degrees of cycles within cycles of time. And cosmic, or at least galactic, or maybe planetary, or just human condition and awareness levels of degrees of consciousness. One of these smaller duration cycles is called a yuga. That's one level of cycle. The yugas. And the yuga, in the cycle of yugas, the one that marks the lowest point in human spiritual development or consciousness development, is called the Kali Yuga, K-A-L-I, the Kali Yuga. One of its its characteristics in general for humanity, or with respect to humanity, is that conscious awareness is pretty much limited to materialism. It's the darkest period for humanity, and these cycles go around and around. But then that cycle takes place within bigger cycles, and it's part of Indian astrology. This works into Indian astrology. Okay, the Kali Yuga. Supposedly, according to this ideology, to which I am referring right now, the Yuga system, we are just now pulling out of the Kali Yuga. Some people call it moving into the age of Aquarius. I mean, that's a different way of talking about it. We are pulling out of the Kali Yuga, and it's going to be a long time before we reach the opposite pole in these yugas. Long time. But we're pulling out of the Kali Yuga, and the Kali Yuga was most evident, apparently, during the Dark Ages, which kind of makes sense that it's called that then, right? The Dark Ages. I mean, during the Dark Ages, it was, I'm told, very few people were able to recognize any kind of an inner divinity. I mean, the divine was an external being. God out there somewhere. People are, in a sense, becoming more attuned to the notion that spirituality is within. That the divine is within. Look within. But until we get to the opposite pole in the cycle, opposite side of the cycle of the yugas, we're not going to fully manifest it. Humanity in general will not. I mean, but when that time comes, humanity as a whole will be in full actualization, a state of full actualization of that. But in the heyday of the Kali Yuga, it's the opposite. So yes, this is another way of talking about it that's not really mentioned here. I mean, it mentions Vedic tradition, and I believe that the Yuga talk stems from that, or roots in the Vedic tradition. So there are various ways to talk about this, and there's a lot of, multicultural and time span over which this kind of talk is taking place. But on the other hand, there's also been just as widespread and long-term talk of energies and forces that work against it. And apparently they've been doing a good job. I mean, we can blame the current human condition on these cycles all we want. And as long as we keep doing that, that's called fatalism. That we're engaging in fatalism. Everything's just up to the way things go. The way the wind blows. Cycles, cosmic cycles. But aren't there always some exceptions? Aren't there always some people who have pushed forward anyway? Haven't there always been those few? Now, we can argue about how they got that way. I'm going to propose that one way to start going in that direction anyway, is by doing something yourself and not being fatalistic about it. Not waiting for the yuga cycles to come full swing. Or half swing. Do a 180. That's not going to happen during my lifetime. But I'll tell you what might happen. The human species become extinct on this planet. The human species, at least on this planet, become completely consciousness enslaved by these forces, powers that aim to make us that way. Why would there be so much talk of all of this? However you want to put it in terms, fallen angels, whatever. Call it what you like. Lower astral, lower fourth dimension entities. Is that the level of the fourth dimension we're ascending to? Most likely, if we're ascending into the fourth dimension, that's the level of it we're going to. That's what I see. That's what I perceive. The indications to me are clear, and not just to me. Yeah, just because somebody says we're ascending into the fourth dimension, it doesn't mean it's a good thing. And this notion about our DNA being activated, well, maybe what was written here that I read to you a moment ago has its truth. But with manipulation of the electromagnetic spectrum of this planet going on, and flipping poles on everything, which is going on a lot through black magic and whatever. Right? Don't want to argue about that. This DNA activation might be going the other way, a way that's not indicated in what I just read to you. Might be toward devolvement. Oh yeah, fourth dimension again. Yep, lower fourth dimension. Be careful about this new age talk. It draws on ancient wisdom, so to speak. Yeah, there's truth sprinkled in it, or at least what looks like truth, and that's very attractive. But there's a lot left out. There's a lot of misinformation involved, a lot of disinformation involved, and a lot of misleading, and a lot of ignorance. Some of it comes with good intentions. Just be careful, man. These apparent cosmic events don't necessarily have to have 100% sway over our little sphere of life here in the Milky Way galaxy, or in this solar system, or on this planet. Consider that our little area here might be operating like a prison. A little closed system. The closedness being imposed by influences that desire to have it that way, so that they can have control over this section. Maybe the rest of the cosmos is ascending, who knows? But I don't see it happening here and now. Like a little prison in the mainstream of society. Yeah, maybe society, in this analogy I'm making here, with the physical prison. Yeah. Have you ever been in prison? Not much changes. I taught academic subjects in a federal prison for a while, a long time ago. There was a guy there. He'd been in the federal prison system he was going on 20 years. He said he couldn't remember what a dog's bark sounds like. And whenever new people would come in from outside in the mainstream of society, he would ask them questions. What do cars look like now? What's on the TVs? What can you get at McDonald's these days? Things like that. He didn't know. He didn't know. What are the clothing styles? He didn't know. Society was moving outside, changing, evolving, changing, right? But inside wasn't. Because it's a little closed system under control of others than the inmates. At least in most cases. That's the way it's set up to be. And the more those inmates can be controlled, their behavior, their thoughts, can be controlled, not by them, not by the inmates, but by their keepers. The better for the keepers, right? I hope you get the parallel here, the analogy. But what I'm saying might just be the case going on here with us on this planet. So ascension? Hey, that's not necessarily the case, man. No. Probably isn't. Probably the opposite is. And probably some of this talk of ascension being the case, I'm sick of that word, ascension. Probably a significant amount, quantity of this quality of talk is put upon us to keep us distracted from the truth. And those with an inquiring mind who want to look into this sort of talk further, they'll find that, yeah, it's been talked about a long time. It's not just something new. It's not just the current powers that be, how can it be coming from them, propagated through society? Now, it's been with us all along. Yeah, well, a very good way to make disinformation believable is to sprinkle in some truth with it. Like couch a lie between two truths. Or couch the truth between two lies. Sandwich them. Any good liar knows that. Hook your audience with something true that they know is true or that they believe is true. And then blend it right in with the lies, the deception. Old trick. All right, man. That's all I have to say. I'm Theron Ramacharaka. Be well.